Paladin, the righteous defender of the weak, the gallant knight against the darkness, or perhaps the Oathbreaker that brings shadow and death to the world. In this video today, we're going to go through building out a Paladin. Maybe this is your first character, perhaps you want to respec one of your companions into a Paladin. Whatever the case is, we'll go through that here today. We'll start out at level 1, looking at Paladin on a very base level to discuss the character creation process, go into a discussion about your subclass options, talk a little bit about standout feats, and close the video out going into some strong multi-class options. You can quickly navigate to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. Please don't forget to check me out on Twitch though, where I do stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, where you can find linked in the comment and description below. But let's get started here on how to build a Paladin for beginners in Baldur's Gate 3. Loading into the game, let's have a conversation about race. Now, every single race in the game is totally viable, so please play the one that you want to play with. Play the role play you have in mind. This is a single player narrative game, so there's no reason to min-max. Everyone starts off with the same exact ability scores, and you decide who gets a +2 or a +1. There are certain ones that maybe get certain benefits over others, but for the most part, everything is on the same playing field. With that being said, I'm going to go through some that are particularly cool standouts that I like, just from personal preference. I'll explain why. So a really cool option is the dwarfs. You get all the different options here. Gold dwarf has more hit points, which is always really nice. Shield dwarf gets access to proficiencies that you already start with, so it's kind of a moot point. But Dwagar are pretty cool here because they get resistance and saving throws here against charm and paralysis. So you have advantage on saving throws against illusions and against being charmed or paralyzed. But they also start with a innate dwarven resilience against poison, which is lovely. But the nice thing too here is that the Dwagar will eventually get the ability to go invisible as they level up and to enlarge themselves, so they'll be able to do more damage in melee. This is a really kind of cool little custom kit for the dwarf, and the dwarf is very cool at being a paladin. Why not be a Oath of Vengeance Dwagar paladin? How cool sounding is that? The drow is always a really fun one for me personally because the drow has access to a lot of really cool items in the game that are race specific. Always do like that option. 2 as well, tieflings going into Zariel basically gives you 2 additional smites as you level up that are linked to being a Zariel tiefling. So this is pretty nice for being in close combat. Also, you get thaumaturgy, which gain advantage on intimidation and performance checks, which you can use for any of your charisma rolls, which you will have lots of since you are playing a paladin. In addition to, half-orcs are very fun because you get savage attacks. When you land a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, you deal an extra die of weapon damage, and relentless endurance. If you reach 0 hit points, you regain 1 hit point instead of becoming down. This just makes you naturally more tanky, and it's quite a fun ability to have. And as always, I'll always give a plug to the Gith Bros. Maybe not the crackhead version, as I like to say. I like the female one. Looks a little bit more appetizing. That's weird. But you get the action Astral Knowledge, which is gain proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. And what that means is I press this button and I choose the wisdom ability. That means I now get proficiency in all of the wisdom skills. That would be perception, wisdom, I think with medicine as well, and insight, and survival. So all these will get my proficiency bonus, which at the start of the game is 2, but eventually becomes +4 by the end of the game. So it's a really nice ability. They start with Mage Hand, but they will eventually get the ability to leap very far as well. So it's just a very cool race that I think gets kind of shrugged off. All your proficiencies here, you all automatically will get as a paladin, so that's kind of lost on you, but still it's quite nice to have. So those are some fun race options if you were kind of running on a dry spell of which ones you wanted to go with. And I always really like Dragonborn paladins. It fits their race persona and everything of the sort. If you go with the metallic one, the metallic ones are considered good, quote unquote, so like a bronze or a brass or a gold. My personal paladin, my own playthrough paladin, is a dragonborn, so for me it just kind of makes sense. But those are your fun race options. But just to quickly go into dragonborn as well, since I've done all the other classes and races, I like that they get a breath attack. It's kind of cool since I'm already going to be up close and personal, and whichever one I choose, whatever element they're aligned with, I will get a resistance to it in which I take less damage. That's kind of nice to have. Unfortunately, Dragonborn get shafted and they don't have any other kind of racial attributes. They just get that attack and that resistance, but I still like them from an RP perspective, and that's why I go with Dragonborn. I know it's not the best pick, but it's the one I like the most. When it comes to Paladin-specific mechanics, we have Divine Sense, Lay on Hands, your Channel Oath, and eventually Divine Smite, which you'll get at level 2, and also Spellcasting. So looking over here, Lay on Hands is your heal. Use your Blessed Touch to heal a creature or cure it of all of its diseases and poisons. And you'll get multiple charges as you level up and experience more and more portions of the game. And that Lay on Hands is quite good. You get to select a variant between curing, healing, or greater or lesser healing, so you can do lots of heals and whatnot. So it's a nice way to kind of have an oh shit button, as it is commonly called in the MMORPG world. But the Channel Oath ability is what you'll see right here in the action for any one of the subclasses. And this uses a special charge, kind of like if you've played, say, a Barbarian or you've played a Bard, where they have a very special action that has a very special resource attached to it. So this is replenished on a short rest, which is nice. And you'll get more of these charges as you level up as well. You won't just simply have the 1 or the 2 or whatever. And as you kind of keep going through it, you'll get more and more of these charges. Like level 1, you only have 1 charge. Just like Lay on Hands, you have 3 charges of. But as you progress through the game, you'll get a 4th charge of Lay on Hands at level 4. And as you just kind of keep going, you'll start to get more charges of all these things as you kind of push through stuff. So it's a fun ability because your Channel Oath will change, of course, depending on your subclass, and that will evolve as well. So just for example here, for the Oath of Vengeance, you or an ally's weapon attacks deal an additional 1 radiant damage and can daze enemies for 1 turn. So it gives you a nice, really fun bonus action to just do a ton of, or this one, in this case, this is an action, and in this case, this is a bonus action, but it gives you an ability to just kind of do a little bit more diverse sets of damage or heal or whatever it is for the specific type of paladin that you have selected. The other thing that you get is Divine Sense right here. Gain advantage on attack rolls against celestials, fiends, and undead. So if you know you're going to be fighting against fiends and undead, is what you'll be dealing with quite a bit in the first 2 acts of the game. You pop this as a bonus action, lasts for 2 turns, and you get an advantage when you're going to go and attack them. Remember, if you're brand new to this whole entire concept, advantages, you roll 2 die and you take the higher of the 2. Disadvantages, you roll 2 die and you take the lower of the 2. So it just helps you to kind of get more damage on target. When it comes to subclass for Paladin, it comes down to your Channel Oath ability, which is right here, and how that can kind of evolve as you level up, as well as access to a special aura and more spells. All Paladins get this same spell list, but every single subclass gets access to some additional spells. So starting off here with the Oath of Ancients, we start with Healing Radiance. So heal yourself and all nearby allies for 2 hit points, then regain another 2 hit points next turn. It's just a nice way to get a ton of healing out, and it is quite lovely. And as you progress through to level 3, you'll get Channel Oath abilities for Nature's Wrath, which basically allows you to root things and turn the Faithless, which will allow you to basically turn or set them fleeing or frighten them for Fae and Fiends. That's what Oath of Ancients is kind of working towards. It's the cosmic struggle against darkness to preserve the sanctity of life and the beauty of nature. So you are definitely more of a nature-focused paladin, but you are not exclusively that. But you'll get spells like Speak with Animals and Snaring Strike. At level 5, you get a really good one, though, called Misty Step, which is a bonus action that allows you to move around quite a bit. It gives you tons of mobility. And you also get Moonbeam, which is very nice as well, because Moonbeam will allow a lot of radiant damage to be dished out. And at level 7, you'll get Aura of Warding, which will allow you to protect your allies from spells, you and your allies from spells. All the paladins get generic paladin auras, but typically, well, I guess 3 of the subclasses, because there's the Oathbreaker is on this list, will get a aura, while the Oath of Vengeance does not. Then eventually you'll get protection from energy and plant growth, but that is your Oath of Ancients. The Oath of Devotion is kind of like a tried and true paladin. It's very much a paladin through and through. I mean, like, you think of the prototypical paladin, this is it. You get Holy Rebuke, grant an ally a vengeful aura that deals 1 to 4 radiant damage to anyone who hits them with a melee attack. And this eventually evolves at level 3 to Sacred Weapon, which is lovely because you're now adding your charisma modifier to your attack rolls. This is particularly strong because if you're going either a strength or a dex paladin, you're going to take your strength or dex modifier. With Sacred Weapon, you are now also adding in your charisma modifier. So it's a lot of damage coming out of you. It does require you to use your Channel Oath ability, unfortunately, which you'll get Turn the Unholy here as well, which is going to be towards undead and fiends, whereas before it was Fey and fiends. But as far as spells go, you'll get protection from evil and good, Sanctuary, Lesser Restoration, Silence, Remove Curse, and Beacon of Hope. And then your special aura for Oath of Devotion is the Aura of Devotion, which is going to give you and your allies protection from being charmed. Then lastly, in the generic subclasses, there's the quote-unquote hidden subclass for Paladin, which is Oathbreaker. You get the Oath of Vengeance. This is going to give you Inquisitor's Might. You or an ally's weapon attack deals an additional 1 radiant damage and can daze enemies for 1 turn. What's important to note, though, is that all this stuff evolves. It's not just staying at 1 damage the majority of the game. If you're brand new to Baldur's Gate, you're not going to go, well, why is this going to be pertinent at level 12? It will become more damage. There is a formula that goes into that. And dazing someone is always quite nice because, as you can see, they have disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, can't take reactions, and lose the dexterity bonus to their armor class. So they're overall easier to hit. But then you'll eventually get Abjure Enemy, which frightens an enemy, making it easier to hit. Fiends and Undead have disadvantage on this, so that basically makes it easier to put this on Fiends or Undead. And you'll get Vow of Enmity, which is really sick because you gain advantage on attack rolls against an enemy for 10 turns. It's just a nice way to really dish out damage. And the Oath of Vengeance Paladin, and I'll kind of sum this up in a bit, but the Oath of Vengeance Paladin is really about focusing down an enemy. It's about burst DPS, I guess you could kind of say. They get spells like Bane, which is going to detract from their saving throws by 1d4. Hunter's Mark, which makes it so that you do more damage when you hit something. Misty Step, which gives you that mobility. Hold Person, which locks someone down. They get Haste. They get protection from energy. A lot of really great spells. Now, rather than getting an aura, they get Relentless Avenger. So if you hit an enemy with an opportunity attack means they've moved out of melee range from you, then you gain 4.5 meters of movement next turn. So it allows you to get, again, a little bit more ability. So which subclass to choose is going to come down to the type of paladin you want to be. Oath of Ancients is, I would say, more of a healing and support-oriented paladin. Not that you are actively a healer for your group, but you have the capability to heal more than the rest of the paladins with their just basically on-hand capabilities. Oath of Devotion is focused more on, I guess you could say, overall tankiness by comparison to Oath of Vengeance. It's by no means solely a tanky subclass that can't do damage, but its focus is more on the durability of everyone around you. And Oath of Vengeance is about mobility and dishing out punishment towards people. So those are your 3 subclasses. There is a 4th subclass, the Oathbreaker, which I'm going to put in its own section. You can find that linked below. But let me also talk about the tenets. So each subclass will have tenets that you have to apply to, and this is where the Oathbreaker comes in. And you'll see this right here. For the Oath of Ancients, kindle the light through acts of kindness and kindle the light of hope in the bleakest hollows of despair. Where love blooms, stand against the delivery that would snip its stem. Delight in culture and small joys to preserve the light in your own heart. And this will go the same for devotion. Show clemency when prudent and lend your arm to those in need. Tend your responsibilities, obey just laws, and support those entrusted to your care. Stride dauntlessly into action. Exerting your wisdom, identify the higher morality in any given instance and fight for it. Like, choose the lesser of 2 evils. Chasten those who dole out their villainy by wiping their blight from the world forever. So you have to follow these tenets when you are playing a paladin. And if you break the tenet, the game will let you know, you will become an Oathbreaker, meaning that no matter what subclass you've chosen, your subclass now changes to that of an Oathbreaker. So let's say you are a level 5 Oath of Vengeance Paladin and you become an Oathbreaker. Well, now you don't become a level 5 Vengeance Paladin and then a level 1 Oathbreaker Paladin. You are just a level 5 Oathbreaker Paladin. So you'll retroactively get all the things that you would have gotten had you quote unquote started as one, even though you can't necessarily do that. And these things are really going to come down to kind of a creed or a way to approach the game. So if you do not like playing a character class that has essentially a code of conduct, then you're just going to go Oathbreaker. And if that kind of turns you off, I just want to be transparent and show that to you and how this works before you jump into this class. It's by no means a bad thing. It's actually a really kind of It's a fun challenge to the game because it allows you to play the game in a very specific way, and it opens up a lot of different avenues if this is your first playthrough, so that when you go through a second or third time, you're like, oh man, I never was able to experience that because I had a set way of playing, because I had to play as a paladin. Ability points are going to come down to your decision of what kind of paladin you want to be. Do you want to be a strength-focused one using strength weapons, or do you want to be a dexterity-focused one using finesse weapons? Once you've made that decision for yourself, you're going to take essentially the same exact route depending on which one you do. So if you want to do strength, pump all of your points here and then put the +2 right there, because this is where the majority of your damage is coming from. Sure, yes, you are going to be using spells, and it's going to be based off of your charisma, but you are still a fighter first and foremost that has the ability to use clerical spells. So we're going to bring this to 14 and put our +1 there. We're going to bring our wisdom up to 10, because especially if you're playing the main character, I like to have wisdom at 10 so that we don't have any penalties towards the wisdom skills, such as perception and insight. And it's nice to have to resist against any kind of charms and whatnot. Then for Constitution, we're going to bring this up to 13, and our Dexterity is going to be 12. I say Constitution to 13 because this is going to help us with any of our concentration rolls, and on top of it, it's at 13, so a half feat can bring this up to 14 very, very easily. Or we could do Improve Ability Score and bring our Strength to 18 and our Constitution to 14 in 1 feat. So that's a really nice situation, right? We get an additional +4 now to strength checks and +2 to constitution checks. And the reason dexterity stays at 12 is that we will probably be going with heavy armor, playing as a paladin. And if we do any more dexterity, we kind of waste it. Heavy armor will not benefit its its armor class, because dexterity will not be added in like it will be for light or medium armor. But we do want to have enough dexterity that we do get improvements to our initiative, so that we aren't just going dead last every single turn. So that's why we've done that split. If I wanted to go with more of a dexterity focused paladin, I'd probably do something like that. Just kind of swapping strength and dexterity. But this way you can see what those two would look like depending on which ones you go with. And then from your choice of skills, this is of course going to be dependent upon your background, but I would focus on things like insight, perception, if you've taken it as a background trait. But of course, anything that is charisma related, especially if this is your main character, you're probably going to want a persuasion or an intimidation here, just so that you are using it succinctly during your conversations. If it's not a main character, then I wouldn't worry about that. Maybe put it into medicine or athletics or any of the other skills here that are not chosen up by a background. Now, as far as origins go, please, as always, choose the origin that makes the most sense for you. I almost always go with custom, but Dark Urge can be particularly fun if you want to play a paladin that is constantly resisting the murderous, carnivorous Dark Urge within you to just rip off a squirrel's head or do terrible things to a bear, whatever it is. But if you want to play as any of the other origin characters, Karlach, Will, Lae'zel, these are typical characters you can play as. Karlach's going to be a little bit of a wild one, but you can play as any of these origin characters as a paladin. You simply would respec them once you unlock Withers in your playthrough. If you've not done that yet, you will. Don't worry about it. You can't miss him. And as far as your background goes, again, go with the one that fits the roleplay for you. Are you a former acolyte turned paladin? Are you an entertainer that has somehow seen a vision of a god and this brought you into the paladin's light? Or are you a noble son? Whatever it is, or a soldier, a sage, whatever it is, think of the roleplay for it. But if you want to kind of approach this from a min-max perspective, I always really like Guild Artisan, because this gives me both insight and persuasion, which are two of the strongest skills to have, because you're going to have a lot of time that you're going to be presented in the game with an insight check, and if you miss it, you miss maybe certain things that could have happened for a romance with a character, certain conversational options that you would have had that could have bypassed fights or given you a leg up in a fight, whatever it is. And persuasion's always good to have, just because it is a conversational skill. If this was intimidation or deception too, those are all very strong. Just having any kind of skill here is great, because then this frees up a skill option for you that you can put a proficiency in something else. So now that persuasion is selected through Guild Artisan, I can put this other point into intimidation, and I don't have to worry about insight. So I can have it here in athletics, so I can successfully pass any kind of shove rolls either against me or against my enemies. So just jumping into the Oathbreaker portion of this, I've set up a scenario that I know is going to break my oath. I am an Oath of Vengeance Paladin, and I'm going to show you what happens when you break your oath. Oh, my oath is broken. It says right there, you have broken your sacred oath and betrayed your beliefs. You can no longer use channel oath charges. You should go to camp and contemplate what happened and what comes next. And as you can see, I'm going to stop this so that you guys can experience it on your own, but I want you to see what starts the Oathbreaker process. As an Oathbreaker Paladin, though, you get access to Spiteful Suffering. The target takes 1 to 4 necrotic damage each turn, and attack rolls against it have advantage. And then this will eventually expand out to Control Undead, which is just what you imagine. You can just control undead, which you will deal with quite a bit in this game. That might sound like it's like a very kind of narrow use case. It definitely is not. Dreadful Aspect. So this allows the Paladin to channel their dark emotions to frighten enemies, and frightening, of course, makes so they cannot do pretty much anything. Which you'll also get for spells, Hellish Rebuke, which is a fun thing since it's a reaction. You'll get Inflict Wounds, you'll get Crown of Madness, Darkness, which is a really great ability, Bestow Curse, and then eventually Animate Dead at level 9. And then your aura is Aura of Hate. So you and any nearby fiends and undead gain additional damage to melee weapon attacks equal to your charisma modifier. So this is going to be really fun if you want to use an Oathbreaker Paladin and then have someone become a Necromancer. You can basically just have this aura buffing everything around you because you just have undead everywhere. You have a lot of fun that you can be doing with this, especially since you can just control undead and do stuff from there. But that is your Oathbreaker Paladin subclass that takes a little finagling to get to, but you can do this in the very first portions of the game. As soon as you land on the ship, depending on which Paladin you are, you can do something to break your oath within the first hour or two. I'm going to link you guys to the BG3 wiki down below, and they will have situations or give you situations you can do to break your oath. I don't want to spoil it, so for those that want to go hunt that spoiler, they can go do it if they so wish. Once you reach level 2 with Paladin, though, you get access to Divine Smite. And Divine Smite is what is so cool about being a Paladin, because you can dish out tons of radiant damage. And the cool thing too is that you can use this as a reaction, or you can do this against reaction for crit strike damage. So you can determine when you want this amount of damage to be dished out, which is very nice. The thing is, it does use a level 1 spell slot. And as you progress, if you use higher levels of spell slot, it will give you 1d8 additional radiant damage for each spell slot level above the first. So right now, you can see it does 1d8. Then if I did a level 2, that would be 2d8. And if I did a level 3, it would be 3d8. So this allows you to do out a ton more damage. And then eventually improved Divine Smite will always have an additional 1d8 thrown in there. So you're just doing a lot of really fun, good amount of radiant damage. And there's a lot of things in the game that have radiant weakness. So this is a very good thing. Radiant weakness will double the amount of radiant damage that you do. So it's a very awesome ability. It does cost you a spell slot, but there's going to be situations where maybe you don't have a spell to use, and you can go ahead and just drop in with Divine Smite and do tons of damage. Feat options for the Paladin are far and wide. So taking a look at ability and score improvement just out the gate, remember you're going to get this at level 4, level 8, and level 12 for your feats. You can go with something like this, where you put 1 point into strength and 1 point into charisma, and now you have +3 charisma checks, +4 strength checks. Or we talked about this earlier, you can do that plus extra point into constitution. However you want to do that, you can dump another point here into strength. It just kind of depends upon what focus you want to have for your Paladin. Is it going to be more in close combat? Are you going to really try to buff up the casting capability of the Paladin, because you're also going to go into being a warlock or a bard or a sorcerer? That is up to you, but you have got the options there if you need them. Outside of that, athlete is quite good too, because this is also going to be a half feat, meaning that you can put 1 skill or 1 ability point into an ability, so like strength here. But when you are prone, setting up uses significantly less movement. You jump an increased distance of 50%, all great things to have. If you want to go with a two-handed weapon, Great Weapon Master is always awesome here. So when you land a critical strike or critical hit or kill a target with a melee weapon attack, you can make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action that turn. Attacks with heavy melee weapons you are proficient with can deal an additional 10 damage at the cost of -5 attack penalty. And you can just toggle that on and off. It's in the little passive button at the bottom of the screen. Another good one too is heavily armored. So, oh, I'm sorry, no, it's Heavy Armor Master. Incoming damage from non-magical attacks also decreased by 3 while you are wearing heavy armor. So it just makes you a juggernaut. If you want to focus on being a sword and board, real big tank, Heavy Armor Master is one of the few armor master abilities that I actually quite like, and it does quite a bit here. Conversely too, you can go with Shield Master. You gain 2 dexterity bonus to saving throws while wielding a shield, and if a spell forces you to make a dex throw, you can use a reaction to shield yourself and diminish the effect's damage. So it allows you to really kind of deflect against spells and stuff like that. Very fun all the way around. But you also have some really fun combinations that you can do with Polearm Master. So when attacking with a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear, you can use a bonus action to attack with the butt of your weapon, while this is the big one. You can also make an opportunity attack when a target comes within range. So this kind of creates like a zone that you can block out, right? Anything comes against you or within that range, you can attack them. And then with Sentinel, when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use a reaction to make a weapon attack against that enemy. So basically, you just start using all these abilities to really dish a lot of damage out. Target ally must not have a Sentinel feat, but you can gain advantage on opportunity attacks, which you will get because you have Polearm Master, right? So you have an advantage on this opportunity attack. And when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, it can no longer move for the rest of its turn. So basically you stop people dead with that ability. And you can chain Sentinel Master with Polearm Master with Great Weapon Master. So you might think that, you know, hey, those don't count as heavy melee weapons. Actually, even a Trident counts as a Great Weapon Master weapon in this case. So as far as Baldur's Gate 3 is concerned, which is really interesting. So you can have a lot of fun chaining all 3 of these things together if you want to use a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear when it comes to putting all 3 of those together. It's quite fun. Mobile is also a very good one as well, just to give you a lot of, well, you guessed it, mobility. And Lucky is always a really good one for every single class in the game, because it allows you to re-roll or get an advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws, or to make an enemy re-roll their attack roll. All really great options for your Paladin. Talking about the progression now for Paladin, we do get a fighting style with them. Defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, or protection. Remember, dueling is not simply just using one weapon. It can be using one weapon and a shield. It's just as long as there's no weapon in the other hand, you deal an additional 2 damage with that weapon. So it depends on how you want to play your Paladin. Maybe you want to be a great weapon wielding badass. Maybe you want to use a sword and board. You can just kind of depend on what you want to do here. And also you will get spells dependent upon your charisma and whatnot, but you'll get access to a lot of different smites and a lot of different fun abilities. These spells too will of course depend upon the subclass you've chosen for your Paladin, as they will sprinkle in more spells for you. Searing Smite, for example, if you're playing a tiefling that of Zariel, you'll just have even more smites to take advantage of. The only difference is the smites from the tieflings, the 2, I think it's Branding Smite, and I think it is a Searing Smite. I think it's 2 different smites, but they don't cost a spell slot, which is really cool for a Paladin that already has tons of abilities to, well, smite things. But now that you've gotten your Divine Smite online and all sorts of other fun things like your fighting style, you'll also get extra attack at level 5, which is fun. Even more spells to take advantage of as you hit level 5 as well as your oath spells. Remember, oath spells, just like cleric domain spells, are always prepared. You don't have to come into this list and prepare them. But once you kind of get into level 2 spells, you have a lot of fun pulling these Branding Smites and magic weapons. Again, if you're a tiefling, you don't need Searing Smite and Branding Smite because it's just built into your class, into your race, which is really fun. This kind of frees up some slots for you where you can take advantage of, okay, well, you know what? Now I want Lesser Restoration, or I want Bless, whatever it is. It's a really cool way to kind of navigate those smite capabilities that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And as you just kind of progress through this, you'll get a lot of the same stuff. Level 6, though, is where you do get an aura of protection. You and any allies gain a bonus to saving throws, which is always lovely. I'm just going to go ahead and keep pushing through this here for you guys. We'll stop around like level 9 or level 8. Level 7, you'll get your subclass feature. I've chosen the Vengeance Paladin. For everyone else, this would be an aura at this point. Even if you go Oathbreaker, but this is when you get Relentless Adventure. Avenger, not an adventurer. Paladin level 8 is when you get your second feat, which I've kind of kitted this guy out to do Polearm, so I would take Sentinel here. And then just to stop here at level 9, we would just get more spell slots and more spells, as well as some more oath spells. So this is what that progression looks like for a paladin, jumping into a lot of different things to give you an idea of how your spells come out, your skills, your feats, and what have you. Subclass options for the paladin are far and wide. You can choose a number of things and have a lot of fun here still. You can go with the fighter for just a simple, more martial paladin. You can add in action surge that you get at level 2, which gives you an additional action to just have a lot of fun with. You couple that with your extra attack, you'll be doing 4 attacks in a round, which is a devastating amount of damage. But at level 3, for fighter, you choose a subclass, and if you go with Battle Master, then you get your maneuvers, which give you a ton of additional utility into the character. You can go with something like a Barbarian, and even though whenever you rage, it does shut off your ability to cast spells, you can still go down the route of, say, a Wild Heart Barbarian, and make it so that you, or whatever Totem Warrior Barbarian is called in BG3, I forget. But you can do this so that you can get access to the Bear Totem, which makes you such a tank. You are so hard to kill if you are a Paladin mixed in with Barbarian, or you go down Berserker to really add to your attack capabilities. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. Rogue, even for additional bonus actions, stuff like that. But what we're going to talk about here is Paladin Warlock, which I've gone through in my actual Warlock video. You can even go Sorcerer too, because Sorcerers rely on their charisma, same thing with Bards. But what I want to focus on here with the Paladin and Warlock is taking advantage of the charisma capabilities of both classes to really capitalize on what both classes do very well. We would change our ability scores around, probably dropping this and adding this up to here. Go like that. Doing something more like this so that we get more strength out of, more charisma out of our class, so we have better rolls with everything, and probably adding another point here into Constitution, which is going to help us out with our concentration. This is how I'd approach, first off, the Paladin Warlock combination, and I'd start with Paladin too, because this gives me my heavy armor and medium armor, all sorts of weapon proficiencies, which won't really matter when we go Pact of the Blade, but still, it's nice to have these armor proficiencies out of the way. Into level 2 for the Paladin Warlock, we would stay here so that we get access to our fighting style, as well as our prepare spell capability, our spells, just our spells in general, not prepare spells, but just kind of go with whichever one makes the most sense for you when it comes to fighting style. Sure, there's always going to be a way that people would recommend. I definitely think probably going sword and board for this style of character is preferable, so you just have more defensive capabilities to keep up your concentration. But if you really wanted to go hard in the paint on great weapon fighting and this, you could definitely do so. After we've gotten 2 levels into Paladin, though, we're going to spice over into Warlock. And this is what's going to give us tons of fun options to have a lot of, well, you guessed it, fun with. And we can choose any number of cantrips here. The big ones that we're going to want to go with are definitely going to be Eldritch Blast, because that's going to give us tons of range capability. And I would go with Friends, just so we have the ability to have advantage on charisma checks. Always nice. Subclasses too. Choose whichever one makes the most sense for you. I personally, since we're going to be up close in combat and doing a lot of fun things, Dark One's Blessing is nice, and then eventually getting Dark One's Luck. But Blessing here is going to give us temporary hit points as we kill things and as we level up. And I also like the spells that we're going to be getting from the Fiend, since that is going to give us access to a lot of close combat stuff like Burning Hands and what have you. But Armor of Agathis is really good too for getting more temp hit points and also dealing cold damage as not a reaction. You don't use a reaction, but it deals cold damage when they hit you, and this will scale up as you go through. Arms of Hadar here too is going to be something that can blow up things around you, but you could just simply go with like Burning Hands or Hellish Rebuke, whatever it is. Hex is always a very fun one too as well, but these are some really great abilities that you can really take advantage of playing as that Warlock. For our Eldritch Invocations, we'll be definitely taking Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast. Agonizing Blast, when you cast Eldritch Blast, you add your charisma modifier to the damage it deals. So now this is going to do +3 damage, and Repelling Blast is going to shoot this thing backwards if I so wish. And once we come into level 3 though with Warlock, we really unlock the power of this subclass. Of this multiclass. We get another spell, cool, great, and awesome. I'm just going to choose Hold Person. Maybe it doesn't matter. And then we choose Pact of the Blade. And of course, why this is important is that we have one of 2 options here. We cast Pact of the blade, in which case it uses the wielder's spellcasting ability modifier. So even though we have 14 strength, now that we have Pact of the Blade unlocked, we're using our charisma modifier to increase our attack damage with our melee weapons. And if we find a particularly good weapon, we just simply cast Bind Pact Weapon. This allows us to take advantage of any melee weapon we find. We cast Bind Pact, it binds it to us, and that weapon becomes the same thing as if it's a Pact of the Blade. So let me just jump back here into the actual game after it goes through this situation, and I'll show you. We can just simply press this button and we choose a battle axe, a glaive, a greatsword, a rapier, a trident, or a warhammer, just to have it, and it will level up with us as we go through the journey of this multi-class. It's a particularly awesome combination that you can do here and have a lot of fun and not be kind of barred by the certain weapons that you find. You create the weapon that you want. Now that we have our Pact unlocked, what do? Well, we keep going into Warlock because we want to get our feat unlocked as soon as possible. That's going to help us out quite a bit here. Just choosing random things to push us through this video. But I know I had spoken about using a sword and shield, and that is really good if you want, I guess, be more of a Warlock. And I guess I didn't think about the benefits of using a polearm master and being able to use your bonus action to attack with the butt of your weapon, which you can actually trigger Smite with. That is very huge. But Great Weapon Master is also a great option too, because it just gets so much more damage out. They both are really good for this build. I'm going to link you guys to my good friend Remordis's detailed Lockadin guide, and he goes through all of the different feat options he recommends for this build, and he went over Great Weapon and Polearm Master kind of being the primary focus of this build. But if you do want to go through things that are more Warlock based, you can use stuff like Spell Sniper or Warcaster if you want to kind of stick on more of a Warlock casty route with while also being a Paladin. But just to kind of give you a quick idea of what you can do with those. And we're going to bring Warlock up to level 5. And that's important because since we are essentially a martial class, we want to take advantage of this Deepened Pack. So Blade Pact holders gain an extra attack with their packed weapon. And since you're going to turn your weapon into a packed weapon, or you're going to summon one, this will always take an effect because you'll get an extra attack from it, and it is huge. And you'll get an extra Eldritch Invocation where you can get Sign of Ill Omen to bestow Curse, or Mire the Mind where you can cast Slow with a Warlock spell slot. So you have a lot of different options here. Fiendish Vigor, Devil Sight, if you're maybe not an elf, if you're a human, whatever it is. A lot of different things that you can do. I'm just going to choose one here. I'll go that. And a spell. We need to just Hunger of Hadar, so good. I'm definitely going with that. Now that we've done that, we go to level 5. We accept being level 5. Now we go back into being a Paladin, and we get Paladin to level 5. Why that's crucial here is that this will give us the class features of going to level 3 and getting more actions out of our Channel Oath. But also this will grant us an additional extra attack, and getting an additional extra attack is unique. This does not usually work in this game. If you have extra attack granted from any resource, it'll say like, this is extra attack. You only get one instance of it. But since the Warlock grants you a very specific style of extra attack, they stack. Now, I don't know if that is a bug. It could possibly be washed away in a patch, but you will have an extra attack from Warlock and an extra attack from Paladin, and you will dish out a stupid amount of damage. I'm just going to choose Sentinel to go with Polearm Master, which we talked about earlier, and we are all set. Now, I can't go to level 5. This character's not level 10, but if we would just simply go to level 5 on this character, and we would get an additional extra attack. So you are all squared away here. 5 and 5, and then from there you can determine which one you want to bring to level 7. Is it going to be Warlock? Is it going to be Paladin? The choice is yours. But the Paladin Warlock, or the Lockadin, is a very, very, very strong build, and I strongly recommend it if you want to go with a good multi-class for your Paladin. And at that, it brings our video here to a close. So whether you're trying to build your Paladin out for yourself and your own main character, if you're trying to change any of the companions like Lozelle or Will into a Lockadin or a Paladin of any sort, this guide should hopefully have helped you out. And if you have any other questions, please by all means go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Or if you have any recommendations on fun multi-class options, please share them below. Let people know the level spread of when they would pivot from one into the other so they can have a good idea of when to approach those multi-classes. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.